start, trip of a lifetime. Let's fucking go. Yeah, so I was watching a college football game last weekend, and the announcer said that when he was talking to the one team's coach, the coach was talking highly about his quarterback, and he said he would have been successful at anything he chose to do in life. He just happens to be a quarterback. Ironically, I'm the polar opposite. If any authority figures from my childhood saw a snapshot of my life right now, they would get total satisfaction, smirking like the kid would have been a failure at anything he did in life. He just happened to have chose rapping and podcasting. I just want to start with a few things that all have a sexual context, so it goes along with the overlying theme of the episode. Rogan recently had some guy on his podcast who gave him a hypothetical scenario. If he had to pick one, would he sacrifice a golden retriever or a human being? And when Rogan said the golden retriever, the guy asked how many golden retrievers is the breaking point before he would sacrifice a human being to save all the golden retrievers. And then that guy went on to say that he asked the same hypothetical to a girl on a date. That's it right there, ladies and gentlemen. This guy has done it. He has created the textbook example of how to dry up a chick's pussy. This guy might be better than me at turning off girls. And the worst part about him asking that question on a date is he took offense to the girl's answer. If asking that gay ass hypothetical on a date isn't bad enough, it's even worse when you know a specific answer is going to offend you. He was offended because she said an infinite amount of dogs. And what's ironic is for me, it's the exact opposite of what that girl said. I'd sacrifice an infinite amount of people before I sacrifice one golden retriever. It's the easiest hypothetical in the history of the universe. I love golden retrievers and I hate people. Golden retrievers make me happy and people make me want to kill myself. Would I rather be surrounded by people or golden retrievers? Maybe if instead of people, there was golden retrievers everywhere I went, I'd stop isolating my apartment and I'd go out every once in a while. Not to mention, if this came into fruition, I'd be the last human being alive and I'd go down as a fucking legend. And the best part about it is if somehow the files of my music could be preserved, my music and my legacy would live on forever. Whatever life forms that existed in the future, as long as they could tap into the files, they'd be bumping my music until the end of time. And then I keep seeing Bill Maher clips that are like grinding my gears beyond belief. He's absolutely insufferable. Everything I hear him say makes me cringe. Even the cadence of his speech makes me want to fucking kill myself. In 2024, I can't believe he's a professional comedian and podcaster and I'm an Uber Eats driver. Here I am though, forced to believe it. I mention him though because I just saw a clip of him with Hawk to a Girl on his podcast. Like, does anything epitomize what's wrong with podcasting more than Bill Maher getting hot to a girl on his podcast? He literally just looks and sounds like an old man trying to show the kids that he's still hip. And he did the opposite. Like, he sounded extremely unhip from what I saw. But what offended me was his hard stance against spitting during sex. He was like, that's disgusting. There's no place for that during sex. No one used to do that. You guys all got that from porn. That's where your generation got that from. He said something like that. I don't know the exact quote. But like, what the fuck is wrong with him? He sounded like an older person disparaging dunking in the NBA. Like, in my day, players elegantly laid the ball into the basket with class. None of that barbaric stuff that they do today. Or he just like sounds like an old person who refuses to adapt to new technology. I don't need the internet. I have my encyclopedia collection for when I need information. And if like an out of touch older person said what he said, then I get it. But it's like a real head scratcher coming from somebody like him who tries to give off the vibes that like he's cool and down with today's youth. But like, it's just crazy because if there's anything that I would think an older person would be down to adapt to, it's spitting during sex. I would have just thought it's something that people incorporate into sex since like the beginning of time. I can't believe like it hasn't always been a part of hookups. Like, it seems so obvious to do and like so fun. I feel like spitting just kind of ignites your primal senses. If like I was 70 years old right now and I lived a sexually active life, I saw porn and for the first time ever I saw two people spit on each other during sex, I would be in total shock. Like, how the fuck have I never thought of doing that before? And everyone's always trying to push the boundaries sexually and kick it up a notch and get dirty. Spitting on each other just seems like an easy, fun, and harmless way to incorporate something along those lines. And it's probably because people aren't spitting on their spouses during sex that they want to spit on them when they're not having sex. And I also recently just heard that Bill Maher has a thing for black chicks. If I was black, white guys having a thing for black chicks would offend me. There's a difference between thinking black chicks are fine as fuck versus quote unquote like having a thing for black chicks. When it's a fetish thing, it's along the fringes of hate fucking. Guys who like have a thing for black chicks Their ultimate fantasy is probably calling her the N-word while coming on her face. And if and when that's the case, that just doesn't sound healthy to me. And I recently saw a podcast critique video. It was criticizing Rogan for saying that he would like to be a girl for an hour and feel what it's like to get absolutely railed. And the narrator of the video was saying how gay that is, and apparently that was like the widespread response to Rogan's comment. And in the video I'm talking about, the guy went on to say he doesn't need to be a girl to do that. He could take dick now if he so badly wanted to find out what it's like. But like, that's totally inaccurate. He could experience what's like being a guy getting fucked in the ass right now, but not what's like being a girl getting fucked in the pussy. And Rogan made it clear that in this hypothetical, he was saying that he would be doing it from the perspective of a female who's wired to have a primal instinct to want to get sexually dominated. I don't understand why everyone isn't on board with that comment. Like, how could that comment possibly be controversial? People are so scared of saying something that might incriminating them of being gay that they won't even admit that they would like dick if they were a girl. Like, how fucking gay is that shit? It's just an example of dishonest conversation, which is going to come up throughout this podcast episode. Obviously, like, if I had the nature of a girl, I would want to get railed, but even if I had the same mind I currently have, I would want to do like investigation work and swap into a female body for an hour and experience what it's like to get fucked in the pussy. I just want to know what girls are experiencing out of curiosity, but like mainly because it would make me so much better at fucking if I knew like what it felt like for a girl. And then that kind of leads to a major point about sexuality that I want to make. Because of how the natural role for a man is to be alpha and a female to be beta, sexually it translates into men getting aroused by feeling predatory and women getting aroused by feeling naughty. It might be subconscious, but ultimately those are the elements that men and women want to create sexually. I used to like not get raped because I don't understand how sex works physically if the girl's pussy's not wet, and I personally have to feed off of the other person's excitement for arousal. I literally like wouldn't even want to have sex with somebody who doesn't want to have sex with me. But now I do get raped from the perspective that men sexually have a predatory nature. It's probably the act of raping or just taking advantage of a girl that turns certain men on. I think we just have to accept the fact that generally speaking, men have a perverted and predatory sexual nature, and not to fault a man necessarily for the nature of his arousal, but more so if he follows through on it and creates victims. And I think the fact that the nature of the male arousal is perverted and predatory is why it's fairly prevalent to hear stories of celebrities pursuing underage girls. It feeds into their pervertedness and allows them to feel predatory within the lines of consensual sex. I don't condone intentionally sexually pursuing underage girls, but make no mistake about it, these are sexual predators and not pedophiles. A pedophile is sexually attracted to prepubescent children. The problem in America right now is almost all of the public discourse is dishonest conversations, and when a guy is pushing the boundaries of age with a girl, instead of making the issue about his predatory behavior, we label and out the man as a pedophile, when the difference between consensual sex with a 17-year-old and pedophilia are light years apart. We create a witch hunt for something the person's not guilty of, pedophilia, instead of addressing their actual wrongdoing, which is predatory sexual behavior with an underage girl. Apparently, like Drake's latest pedophile now. The way our society is constructed, it's unacceptable for an adult to even be flirtatious with a minor, yet alone intentionally sexually pursue an underage girl. But it's not pedophilia. You could condemn the predatory behavior while acknowledging that the pedophile tag is a ridiculous allegation. And Rogan's been just as guilty as anybody else at ignorantly classifying consensual sex with an underage girl and pedophilia as like the same thing. When he recently had Sam Talon on his podcast, they were talking about Roman Polanski and they were like calling him a pedophile, and like he may or may not be one. I don't know exactly the details of his situation, but then Rogan was like, yeah, a lot of people were pedophiles back then. And then he referenced the song Christine 16, a Rick James song, and another song singing about a 16-year-old, and then he called Seinfeld a pedophile for dating a 17-year-old. I acknowledge like it's crazy that songs like that even existed back then, and it's pretty hard to believe that Seinfeld was a celebrity in modern times and dated a 17-year-old, but none of that's pedophilia. And I've had a strong opinion on this topic for an extended period, but now it really hits home for me because to the fall of Instagram, as of late, I've been jerking off to pictures and videos of underage girls, but I'm not internally torn about whether or not I'm a pedophile. I know I'm not a pedophile because my attraction isn't to prepubescent children. If being attracted to 17-year-old 16-year-old girls makes you a pedophile, then yeah, I'm a pedophile, along with every other straight man in the universe. The breaking point of when girls become attractive to adult men is younger than we'd like to admit. If you find girls attractive, then you're attracted to a hot 17-year-old girl. A hot 17-year-old girl is more sexually attractive than almost everybody's wives. Let me rephrase that. A hot 16-year-old girl is more attractive than almost everybody's wives. And I will acknowledge that, like, on a girl's 16-year-old birthday, she still does look fairly young, but she doesn't look young when she's turning 17, and she still was hot when she turned 16. And I know women know this because I bet a lot of females would love to be frozen in time how they looked when they were 16 to 17 years old. Specifically girls who peak early and were hot at young ages. And not to mention, hot girls at that age all look pure as the ocean because they haven't started getting work done yet. Their lips don't look like fucking snouts from lip injections. And younger girls have nicer legs, and in my opinion, a scary truth is they have nicer asses also. And not only do I think that some girls are more attractive at that age, but for older men, it feeds into their perverted nature because it creates taboo and predatory dynamics, which only make girls at that age more arousing to older men. The age gap itself almost like kind of creates a fantasy. When I was in high school, cheerleaders were like an afterthought. Most of them weren't hot, and if a hot chick was a cheerleader, it was just like whatever, such and such cheerleads. I always like saw it as, I don't understand why she wastes her time with that shit. But when you're 40 years old, the thought of a hot high school cheerleader just hits different. And like along the same lines of like a high school cheerleader creating a fantasy for an older man, conceptually it's the same as the dudes who get excited counting down the days until a girl turns 18. It's grown men who feed off of that fantasy, not like some 23-year-old guy. And I'm a year older than the Olsen twins. I remember it was always like such a big deal when the Olsen twins turned 18, which was ridiculous in and of itself because none of the guys that were like counting down the days were actually going to hook up with the Olsen twins. It's almost like they were counting down the days until they could legally jerk off to them. But that whole thing was just corny to me. The Olsen twins turning 18 meant nothing to me when I was 19, but now at 40, I get what the fuss is about. If you find them hot, like the Olsen twins never did it for me, but like now I get it. Like if you find like a hot 17-year-old girl attractive, you love the idea of her turning 18. But like, honestly, isn't the fantasy even more the day before she turns 18? It's the same girl, but it's just the day before, but then it creates the extra taboo dynamic of an underage girl, you know what I mean? And like, how many of the guys that were counting down the days until the Olsen twins turn 18 are now calling everybody else a pedophile? Because that's the trend. The trend used to be excited for the Olsen twins to turn 18, and now the trend is to call everybody a pedophile, and everyone just follows trends. So I'd imagine that the populations overlap. So if they're calling someone like Drake and Crystal Lee and Josh Giddey a pedophile, then by their own standards, then these people are also pedophiles. And there's plenty of girls who are already 18 at that moment when the Olsen twins turned 18 that were hotter than the Olsen twins, but the people counting down the days were feeding off of the fact that they were 17 for excitement and presumably arousal. Like, is 18 where our internal wiring draws the line, or do we find 17-year-old girls even more of a turn on and a hot 16-year-old girl even more of a turn on? It's like, if we're being honest, the guys who get excited when a girl turns 18, as long as the girl started her developmental phase, these guys probably find it even more exciting the younger the girl is. And like I said before, I'm not judging the man for the nature of his arousal, but it's dishonest conversation when we call everybody a pedophile. When you're talking about younger girls like that, it's just so perverted that it's arousing, and it sets up a predatory dynamic. And then it also allows the man to feel alpha and dominant. It just sets up so many dynamics for arousal. Like, it just makes sense that men are attracted to younger girls. So when you add all of that together, not only generally speaking do I think older men find 16 to 17-year-old girls attractive, but I think they find these girls exponentially more attractive than boys that are that age do. And I'll admit, like, it's true for me. A hot 16-year-old girl looks way hotter to me now than when I was 16 years old. When I worked in Naples Cheesecake, the juniors and seniors from Naples High School would come to the Cheesecake Factory after homecoming wearing short ass skirts and looking fine as fuck. And a lot of people do the whole girls didn't look like that when I was younger routine, but they did look like that when I was younger. But it's just different seeing it when you're in your 30s and serving their table opposed to 16 years old where you've been like seeing these same girls since elementary school. Not to mention, unlike what basically all other men say, overall I just get more turned on now than I did when I was in high school. My body just like wasn't really getting turned on back then. My juices are just like flowing more than they were back then. And this is a good time to lead into some Josh Giddey and Chris D'Elia talk, because no pedophilia conversation is complete without mentioning their names. In my universe, their faces have become synonymous with dishonest conversations surrounding pedophilia. A major theme of this episode has been how older men presumably like underage girls because it feeds into their pervertedness, it's taboo, and it's predatory. But what's so ridiculous about the Josh Giddey situation is he's not even an older man. He wasn't feeding off of any of those elements. He was just trying to hook up with a hot girl, and I believe she lied about her age, and he was under the assumption that they were the same age. But that's besides the point, because even the truth of her age isn't disturbing. She was 16 and he was 19 at the time. It's a 3-year age gap. There's nothing abnormal about that. Not only is he not a pedophile, in this situation, he's not even perverted. Like, he might be a perverted human being, but that situation doesn't indict him for being perverted. And I've heard Rogan say some of the most ridiculous shit lately, but I just saw a clip of him saying something like, it's weird for a 20-year-old to hook up with a 17-year-old. I'm pretty sure like those were like the exact ages he uses. And it's especially strange coming from him because he said he was in a relationship with an underage girl when he turned 18 and he was scared he was going to get arrested. So he should know as well as anybody how arbitrary the 18-year-old number is, specifically when you're talking about kids in the same age bracket. But I figured out the perfect law that I think is pretty much common sense. Just use the standard high school age gap. It's pretty normal for a high school senior, specifically by the middle of the school year, to be hooking up with a girl that's a freshman. You're talking a 3-year age gap, 17 years old to 14 years old. That's totally acceptable. And then overnight, that kid could turn 18 and it should still be legal. So I just think that 14 to 18 years old is an age gap that makes sense for consensual sex when dealing with minors. And then you just scale up those ages. 15 years old girl to 19 years old guy, a 16-year-old girl to a 20-year-old guy, a 17-year-old girl to a 21-year-old guy. And then once a guy turns 22 years old, they could only legally have sex with girls who are 18 years old or older at that point. I think 21 to 18 is an age difference that makes sense as a cutoff point for like hooking up with minors. So like someone who could legally drink could only have sex with someone who's 18 years old or older. But if it's legal for a 16-year-old to have sex with a 20-year-old, which I think it should be, then you got to scale up that age gap. You can't press it tighter and make it illegal for two people who might like already be in a relationship. So as much as I do like the 21 to 18-year-old number, I just think it has to be 21 to 17. I think that it has to start 14 to 18 and then you just have to scale it up. And just like to highlight how arbitrary all these boundaries are and how 18 years old is not the line of morality, just like think of it like this. Right now, the way our law is constructed, if a girl who's a senior in high school turns 18 during the school year, she could legally have a 50-year-old man come to her hotel for senior prom weekend and have sex. But if her friend is still 17 and she has a 20-year-old boyfriend at the time that she took to prom, then it's illegal for them to have sex. Like, it's so ridiculous. And I have like no problem morally with either situation, but something just doesn't sit right if a 50-year-old man is hanging out at a hotel for a high school's prom weekend. And when you put it in perspective, that's really where the issue lies with girls that age. In my opinion, it's not a moral issue, but it does break social norms that exist for a reason. And for me, like, the boundary is high school. I think it's a good judgment decision for anybody older than the college age bracket to stay away from girls that are still in high school, even if the girl's 18. College kind of like separates adult men from high school girls, in my opinion. But like when you're dealing with males in like their mid-20s and 16 to 17-year-old girls, like, I see it as how did they end up in front of one another? Were social boundaries broken? If they're at the same party and they end up hooking up, I think there's nothing wrong with that. But like, I don't think a 25-year-old male should be DMing a 16-year-old girl on Instagram. It's kind of like the social universe creates boundaries. As long as you're not like breaking social boundaries to get into your interaction, then I don't even think it's predatory. And I just mentioned being an older man and DMing an underage girl on Instagram, which brings me to Chris D'Elia because I believe that's what he did. I don't know. I don't know the full story, so I might be incorrect, but let's just say for the sake of conversation that his offense was DMing a girl that he knew was underage. That obviously is wrong and it's predatory, but I'm judging him for his actions, not for the nature of his arousal. And it's like a social objection, not a moral one. He's perverted, but not a pedophile. And I'm the same age as Chris D'Elia, like a similar age. Like, I will say DMing a girl that you know is underage is morally questionable. If a 16-year-old girl comes onto Crystalia and they have consensual sex, then I have no problem with that because she's the predator in that scenario. But a grown man should never be putting sexual pressure on a girl that young. And then for the final part of the episode and the inspiration behind this episode in the first place, and the main thing that I want to air out, Instagram encourages pedophilia. They at least enable it. I would say they encourage it, and I would even go as far as to say if it's paid promotion that's getting all these videos in front of me that I'm seeing, then they even promote it. And Instagram could satisfy whatever you're into, whether you're a pedophile or whether you're just a pervert. And I'm saying this because they place videos of little girls dancing in the suggested for you videos in the explore tab of my Instagram account. They even write out those words specifically underneath the person's name, suggested for you. I'm talking children dancing, like 8 to 10-year-olds. I really can't tell like all their ages, but they're clearly all prepubescent, and the images are absolutely disturbing. Sometimes they're like wearing Disney princess type of dresses. I was thinking this has to be what modern day child pornography looks like, and it's being suggested for me by Instagram. And the chicken 100% comes before the egg. I never clicked on any videos of little girls dancing, so why would they all of a sudden appear in my algorithm? And once it was there, I clicked sheerly out of curiosity, and then the algorithm feeds into it. Next thing you know, my feed is flooded with little girls dancing. And initially I clicked on the videos out of shock and horror, but then the video started evolving. It evolved from little girls to hot teenage girls dancing sexually, turning around specifically so you could see their ass, sometimes literally bending over and or shaking it. It's probably more arousing than porn because they tease you and it creates a fantasy. But at first, when it was children dancing, I was horrified. Then when it was teens, I started getting turned on, and then it got to a point where I was kind of just like horrified at how turned on I was. Instagram turned me out. They got me obsessed with underage girls. Not that long ago, I saw a cheerleading picture, so I clicked on it and realized the girl was a college cheerleader, and my first thought was, oh, she's older. It could be worse though. Like, at least I'm not jerking off to gay porn. I've been there before. No offense to the gay community, but I'd rather be getting off to underage girls than guys of any age. And I will say, it's a gem relative to any aspect of life. You do got to be careful what you're feeding off of. It could quickly turn into a one-way street. I keep finding myself going slightly lower in age and like looking for girls younger, but I do have a cutoff point. And I will say, like, when you're talking about like 14-year-old girls and like 15-year-olds who are like just turned 15, if I saw those girls without a shirt on, it would probably be a turnoff, and it would put it into perspective to me because of how undeveloped they are. But instead of that, I'm getting the opposite. I'm getting videos where they're probably wearing push-up bras, obviously wearing makeup, and they're putting filters on the videos to make them look older. Visually, there's not much of a difference between the images of a lot of these girls and the swimsuit models of yesteryear. Like, when you're talking about the photos of some of these girls, you could slide them into the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issues in the 90s and no one would think twice. People would just think it's like a 20-year-old girl. And honestly, when it comes to the internet, I don't know what the fuck I'm clicking on. These videos could be computer generated and not even real girls for all I know. But assuming that they are videos of real teenage girls, does jerking off to these videos sit on my conscience? Like, maybe slightly, but not really, because I'm not putting pressure on them. It's not like they're getting a notification every time I jerk off to one of their videos. I'm doing it in the privacy of my own home, and I'm not creating victims. And in all these videos, the girls are like clearly projecting sexuality. It's not like I'm jerking off to like little naive girls. All these girls, if they're real people, are undoubtedly more sexually advanced and sexually active than I am. I would never hook up with a 14-year-old girl in real life, but if I were to hook up with one, it's like she'd be taking advantage of me. And my rule in real life is if I see an attractive underage girl, then I just look away. I refuse to check them out in real life because that's inappropriate and predatory, and that's how I justify jerking off to teenage girls. I'll just keep it on the computer screen. And I will say that when I'm jerking off to videos of girls that are clearly in that 14 to 15 age range, it kind of doesn't sit right with me, but I'm just clicking on whatever videos Instagram's putting in front of me. If somebody has a problem with me jerking off to videos of underage girls dancing, I say take it up with Instagram, not with me. But I was once on a video of some girl dancing and it was hashtag something like tweenager or teen dancing, so I clicked on the hashtag. It's not like I typed tweenager or teen dancing dancing into the search bar. I just clicked on a video that was suggested for me, and then the video was hashtag. So I clicked on a hashtag, and then once I clicked on a hashtag, some message popped up saying some shit like pedophilia is illegal. Like, I almost fucking broke my computer screen in half out of anger. I know pedophilia is illegal. I don't need Instagram telling me what the fucking laws are, and this isn't pedophilia. And that's besides the point. What matters here is it's their fucking website that's jamming these videos down my throat in the first place. They're suggesting a video for me. I click on it, and then they send me a message that pedophilia is illegal. This is like somebody selling you drugs and then texting you drugs are illegal. Like, I don't fucking need you telling me. And if anyone should be held accountable for doing something wrong and partaking in criminal behavior, it's Instagram, not me. Like I alluded to before, they're probably collecting money from paid promotion from a lot of these videos, so they're profiting off of this, and they have the analytics of who's clicking on the accounts, so they must know a lot of the activity on Instagram is adults jerking off to teenage girls. I know it's not just me. The comment section in all these videos is like a cesspool, and I don't even know what a cesspool is. I just know that it's like a cesspool, but every comment is like, damn, I'm trying to hit that, or DM me your number and let's chill. And assuming that like these commenters are just trolling, them commenting that is just a testament to how I'm not the only one who sees what's going on. They see these videos the same way I do, as sexually graphic images of teenagers. And the commenters aren't necessarily jerking off. They might just be like, what the fuck is this shit? Why is this suggested for me? So they just like leave a comment to amuse themselves. But even if they're just fucking around, it's still a reflection of what undoubtedly exists underneath the surface, which is presumably a lot of adult men just like me jerking off to these videos. But it's so easy to clean all of this up, whether it's the legal system or Instagram and other social media platforms policing themselves. Just separate the accounts of adults and minors. Make it so if you register an account listing your birthday as 18 plus, then a minor's page isn't even accessible to you. It's as simple as that, and then all these underage accounts disappear from my Instagram feed. And then once someone turns 18, all the content that they post from there going forward is visible to everyone. There's no reason that a minor's social media account should be visible to anyone 18 or older, and adults could still be visible to minors. So if it's like Facebook, somebody younger than 18 could friend request an adult that they know, and then that adult could see their social media page once they get the friend request. And this would also allow for kids to see the accounts of their favorite artist on Instagram. Like if some 14-year-old girl is like a huge fan of like some 30-year-old artist, the account's visible to them. So it's like it only goes one way. Minors are blocked to adults. Adults aren't blocked to minors. But what it would do is eliminate people like me from even having access to the accounts of underage girls, let alone having these videos suggested for us and jammed down our throats by the social media website itself. And if this was a universal rule for social media, then it would say in the terms and agreement for these websites that it's illegal to lie about your age when registering an account. And if a search warrant of somebody's IP address connects them to a social media account set up with a fake birthday, and they use that account to access the pages of minors, then they get arrested and placed on a sex offender registry. But I might be like the most unconservative person in the history of the universe. How am I the first person that I've heard to point out that what's happening on Instagram is unacceptable, and there's got to be some type of law regulating social media websites to separate the accounts of minors from adults? And I guess everything stems from TikTok, but I'm not on TikTok. I thought of starting an account, but I decided that would be inappropriate. And then the other law that should be immediately put into motion is filming trolling videos needs to be illegal. It directly instigates and leads to violence. There must be countless examples of someone responding with violence and getting arrested because they reacted to somebody trolling them for a fucking YouTube video. If someone goes around trolling other people, I have no pity for what comes back to them. And their video footage should always be legally admissible and be able to be used against them. They're literally filming the evidence and posting it publicly. Filming those videos creates victims. It's not a victimless crime, and it should be illegal. If somebody wants to do heroin every single day and has the money to pay for it, I don't give a fuck if they do that shit. But I have a problem if someone goes around filming these videos. And there should be a law about it, but YouTube should clean it up even before the legal system takes matters into their own hands. It's so easy to clean up. All they got to do is start demonetizing and removing trolling content. But the legal system should also put something into effect so that going forward, anybody who tries to post trolling content gets arrested. But no one will even be trying to post trolling content because once it's demonetized by YouTube, no one's even going to be filming those videos anymore because there's really no profit incentive. Yeah, so that's that. I think with this episode, I might have gotten canceled before I ever had a career. Start worm, trip of a lifetime. Let's fucking go.